Good evening, everybody. Welcome. I know. I know. Oh, the background behind me. Don't worry about the background. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's Tuesday night. It's June 1st. Please pardon my nose. Not the size of it, but just it's all congested, so I'm going to sound like I'm speaking through a sock. But these things happen. So I have a special guest with me tonight, and you guys remember him from last week. What's up, Kevin? You guys remember him from last week. Danny Wise, gentleman that I became friends with. I have a lot of respect for, and we seem to be becoming friends, and I like it. He seems like a really good guy, and he is the CEO of a big cannabis company growing in California. So I'm going to bring him on. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome my friend Danny Wise.
Hey, how are you?
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me back for a second date. I appreciate it.
No, thank you. The feedback we got was phenomenal. I had a bunch of people reach out to me, ask me some extra questions for you.
Yeah.
But I will definitely, if they're here, I think they'll pop up and say things, and I'll pop it up like this. You'll see that on the screen.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
All right. That's Kevin. That's a good buddy. So, how was your weekend, Mr. Danny?
It was good. It was good. I spent it with my kids and my family, and we just cooked out and had kind of a relaxing weekend, and reminisced on a lot of stuff from the past. And yeah, it was good. It was good. Talked to a couple of my buddies. If you have friends that have had people that they have lost, Memorial Day for them can be kind of rough. So there's 3 or 4 guys that I reach out to on these holidays just to make sure that they're doing okay. Just kind of a veteran mental health check. So I've got kind of a Rolodex of guys that I check in on. Yeah. So yeah, no, it was a good weekend. How about for you?
Pretty good weekend. Did the same. Just hung out with the family. We did not have beautiful California. we had crappy Pennsylvania weather, and it was raining and cloudy for 3 days in a row. I think we had like 10 minutes of sunshine the whole weekend.
Yeah, I've been in Southern California so long I forget that there's other places where the weather isn't always nice.
Yes.
Although we have our issues, we have the weather, but we've got our other trials and tribulations that we have to deal with.
Yeah, I remember. I don't remember how long ago, but I don't know if I was a teenager in my 20s, but I remember this freak snowstorm going through Southern California, and like the whole Southern California just was like shut down, and it was like maybe 2 inches of snow, and nobody knew what to do. Everybody just went, snow, what happened?
Right.
You don't know this stuff.
Yeah, when something does happen, we are generally ill prepared for surprises. Yeah. But I mean, I guess that's most of the country. We saw, Texas this last year where they got hit with that unexpected storm, and so yeah, it's I think if any area gets hit with weather that they're not used to, it just creates logistical issues all around.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm starting to understand those domed-in cities that they're building in the Middle East. That they're temperature controlled, climate controlled, everything controlled. It doesn't sound so bad anymore.
Yeah, wow, I haven't seen that.
They're doing that. They have a small little just enclosed areas with where there's no access to outside.
Right.
Yeah, it's just like air sealed off. So the whole area,
Right.
these indoor malls or indoor shopping centers that are just everything's air controlled.
Right. Yeah, that could be good. It kind
Yeah.
of sounds like a setup too, though, you know?
Yeah. All right, man. So I know last time we talked for a while and we didn't get to this topic. But this topic, from what I've seen and from my experiences talking to so many people, so many different vets, so many people in the cannabis industry, and then again, so many men with mental health issues on varying degrees. Could be just a guy going through a bad divorce and not really knowing what to do. And it could be somebody coming back, missing their arm and suffering from PTSD and just completely shot. So there's different kind of levels on what kind of impact it's having on an individual's life. But I guess a question to a CEO of the cannabis industry is, how do you tackle men's mental health issues and do it openly and honestly without pushing everybody's buttons?
Yeah, that's a great question. Obviously, for us, being focused on the veteran community specifically in everything that we're trying to accomplish, from that approach, we are trying to create products and partner with brands, companies like HVGC, where 100% of the profits that they receive go right back to research for PTSD. They were one of the first, I think actually they were the first company to get approval from Congress to do human trial studies, a blind study with a university for some products that they have, where they're going to compare, the effects of cannabis, I think, compared to opioids. Don't quote me on the exact details, but they were one of the first ones to get congressional approval, if not the first one to do that. So there's a lot of really cool stuff going on. Obviously, that type of stuff is trying to attack it from a macro perspective and to try and get out in front of it. And then obviously from, a leadership perspective internally, within the company, we hire primarily veterans, but we have non-veterans and people from different backgrounds, within the company. And, so I think that in the cannabis industry, we, like even just like for me, like being in the position that I'm in now and the path that I've taken to get here is not the path of a corporate CEO that's running some massive company outside of the cannabis industry, comparable to, the size of what I have in the cannabis industry, right? That it's not the same path. And so we've been very careful about keeping our like non-corporate culture intact. And that's not to say, I think when people hear that, sometimes they automatically think like unprofessionalism or, we run an extremely tight ship, but we stay true to the things that got us here. And so for us, it's like, there's no reason to go out and create a lot of these issues. And I think that a lot of mental health issues with people, I think primarily is caused from, if people are working a full-time job, the majority of their life then is spent at that job, interacting with the customers and with their coworkers and with managers and bosses and all of these types of things. I think that would be a huge portion of stress derived, right? And mental health strain. And I think that these corporations, a lot of them are built off of dogmatic practices that it's just like, that's the way that you do it. So with cannabis, we were like, no, we're going to build this our way. Like we got here our way, doing it the way that we wanted to do it. And it's easy now, like, when you create a concept and then you go and you execute it, it's like one of my really good friends and advisors. He told it to me like this. He's like, think of yourself as an artist and you're drawing a painting. And at first you start drawing the painting and everybody's laughing and everybody can't see what you can see that it's going to look like when you're done painting it, And so he was talking about how you know, you got to look at it from that perspective. And then slowly but surely people start seeing like, oh, like I see what that could be, right? And so then that's when the acquisition offers come in, right? Because they're like, oh, he's only 30% of the way done with his painting, but if we can get it from him for this, then we can finish it and we can sell it for this, right? And so from that perspective, there's a lot of like, once you build it big, everybody wants to come in and tell you how to, like, here's how you should do it now, right? Because we know how to run big corporations and all this stuff. And we bring on just enough of it to keep our structure, but we don't bring on too much to where we lose our culture. So from that perspective, we try and get out in front of the mental health issues in terms of that being derived from places of employment, and to try and create an environment where like there's no unnecessary nonsense just because that's the way that it's always been done. We're like, no, we're going to build this our way. We're going to keep doing it our way. We're going to take care of people. We're going to build long-term relationships with people. We're going to make sure that people have time with their family and that they have off time and they receive enough pay to be able to live a fulfilled life, right? All of these things are all little pieces that I think culminate into us trying to build a culture of positive mental health for men and for women, because I think right now our company's like 60-40 in terms of involvement, 60% being women and about 40% being men. And every day that number is the women's side of that number gets higher and higher. So we're really focused on just mental health across the board and just trying to build a good culture for people.
I couldn't agree more with everything you said. I think you know, the fact that you are smaller compared to these, you know, big canna companies or big pharma companies jumping in, and that you have the footprint to do what you need to do and grow the way, you know, the essence of the cannabis culture should be. I think it's phenomenal. I think more and more people need to adopt that mentality in the cannabis industry. For example, um, I'm not gonna name drop, but I was speaking with a CEO from a cannabis company that is currently having issues in the state of Michigan. And I don't know if you're following what's happening in Michigan with all the how they're limiting what the patients and caregivers can do.
I think that
I know Michigan's not your state,
that,
you know, if you're following it.
Yeah, I didn't. I think I saw the headline circulated on LinkedIn, but I did not read the full article about it. No.
Okay, so basically, there's proposals by these large companies because they want to protect their dollars. But these are some of the bigger major players in Michigan, and they're trying to limit what the caregiver and the patient can do. So they're putting limitations on it right away. And I was speaking with the CEO. We were going to do an interview, and when this issue came up, he backed away and did not want to discuss. And they put out an official statement, but it seems so corporate-y, like it smells so corporate-y, so lawyery. And I get it. That's what lawyers are there for. You want to protect yourself, you want to protect the company. But you know, when something smells like it, you know, it is. And there's so many CEOs that I've spoken to that are preaching and practicing what they preach of this, you know, correct cannabis culture.
Right.
More and more, I just think if we could bond all of these CEOs together, state by state, and just agree to a certain standard of metrics, excuse me, but agree to a certain standard of metrics, certain standardization of practices and procedures that everybody has already been doing for, you know, decades at this point. But I think that's a good way that people will feel better about it federally. on a large level. That it won't be so state run, individual states or individual counties. That it will just be more on a federal level. One rule, everybody, applies to it. It benefits everyone. It's taxed correctly. It's supported correctly. It's an infrastructure is built in place. That's my thoughts. What are your thoughts?
So I think, first of all, there's no topic that you could bring up that I will back off of. You'll always just get my honest opinion on things.
This is why we speak.
I have no, I don't do a lot of lobbying or any of that type of stuff. I'm really just focused on just building the best stores that I can, the best brand that I can, and trying to be true to the cannabis culture and just trying to build something really cool.
Right.
I think that in theory, what you're saying makes a lot of sense, right? But then if you think about like any other industry, whether it's alcohol or whether it's even just like, say, we'll just use this for example, traditional real estate development, right? If you want to go into California and you want to build an apartment complex, depending on what city you go into, depending on the specific plan, depending on the design guidelines for that local jurisdiction, there's dozens of things that you have to follow. And then the state of California on top of that says, okay, also you have to do all of this stuff. And then the federal government says, oh, also here's our rules, right? So you kind of go through those different steps. So there's really no industry that has that the federal government has total control over, right? Because we have individual state rights. Whereas I could do that same apartment complex and I could go to Central Texas, and I have a buddy that's doing development over there who laughs at me as I'm going through these lengthy environmental processes that they don't have to go through, And a lot of it makes sense for me. We're protecting the environment. We're doing all these different components that he doesn't have to deal with at all, just because of where he's at in the political structure. So I think it would be impossible to have something set and standard from that would eliminate or be superior to the rules of the state and then the local jurisdiction. But I think from the state or from the federal perspective, absolutely, when federal legalization occurs, there is going to have to be a federal standard. But I don't think that that's going to inhibit any of the state or local jurisdiction requirements. Like here's some pushback that I always get, right? Or not always, but when you're dealing with investors and these types of things, their job and the jobs of the people that you talk to before you talk to them, their financial advisors, is to how can we find holes in this, right? So no matter how squared away everything is, they're going to try to poke holes in it, which is great because if we do find a hole, we're able to patch that and keep it moving, So it's great. But one of the things that comes up is like, well, right now there's, around 1,000 dispensaries in the state of California for 40 million people. So to put that in comparison, Oklahoma has about 3,000 dispensaries and there's less than 4 million people in the entire state. So California is one of the most underserved per capita based off of the population here. So when you take into account a lot of that type of data, you start to realize how underserved some of these markets are in some of these areas, specifically like in California. And then it just opens up a new perspective where you understand the way that these processes go and how they change from area to area, just across all industries in general.
All right. Well, you've been dealing with that stuff more than I have. So in terms of let's balloon this, make it instead of just a California thing and a wherever thing, but the cannabis industry in general.
Mm-hmm.
Now that there's more rep, and now that most states are adopting a medical aspect, and each you see things every day, a new state here, a new state here. Now it's changing. How does the medical aspect Um, see, I got a question. I gotta phrase this right. How does the medical aspect of the marijuana for rec sales maintain itself in the mental health aspect for the cannabis community? Because now that it's becoming rec, is it going to be where somebody now says, well, if we're calling it a medicine, is the person self medicating? Or is this just completely a recreational drug? Does that stabilize the stigma or change the stigma?
I think that it stabilizes it. I think that in states that are recreational, I think that it destigmatizes it because it creates a pathway where, if we're in a state where in order to access cannabis you have to get a medical recommendation, then that limits people's ability to access that.
Right.
And at the end of the day, or here in California, I can only speak really to California and a little bit in Michigan because we do have one licensed project in Michigan. But the products that are being sold at a medical dispensary and a recreational dispensary are going to be virtually the same. And there's certain brands that have branded themselves as more medical type products, right? In the way that they dose that, the healthiest combinations of cannabinoids and no additives and all of these other types of things. So people that are coming into these recreational stores that are seeking those types of products, we're able to educate them with having our staff trained correctly, where we can point them in the direction of, products where they're not interested in edible or inhaling anything. And there's a lot of new products that I think are great for that. But I think that all of that innovation is driven by recreational cannabis. And I think that the states have differentiated between medical and recreational. So in people's head, if they think recreational, they think that, it's just like potheads walking in there, right? But I think that we shouldn't limit in cannabis. Who are we to tell people what they have in terms of a medical recommendation that they need to use cannabis for? Because I think cannabis is bigger than that. It's not, the human body is naturally with C1 and C2 receptors in the endocannabinoid system. The human body is designed from start to finish to receive this product, And so I think that even if people are using it recreationally, does that mean that they don't get the medical benefits of it? No, they're still getting the medical benefits that plant provides, no matter how they're ingesting it. Where obviously if you're somebody that is not in pain, you shouldn't be on pain pills, because there's massive detrimental impacts to your life and your body to do that. And you should only do it if you absolutely have to. And so I don't think that's the case for cannabis. So I think it's about destigmatizing it. And so for us, we've taken the approach with the cake house concept to get away from a lot of the older style branding in the cannabis industry and to build something that's really cool and really fun, and get away from the stigma of it's the feds versus the growers and there's this big epic battle, right? Which there is, and that's a really important part of the history. But we want to destigmatize it to where people that before were not afraid to use cannabis products are using it, because it's becoming normalized in our culture, in our society. And I think we'll see huge impacts across the board for people once it becomes commonplace.
How long, speaking of becoming commonplace, that's a good segue. How long do you think it takes before the entire economy, like we could say right now, our America's a retail economy, a capitalist economy, there's America has more tchotchke little things than anyone, half of them are from China. So where does the American economy transform, and what transforms with it? It's not just going to be new strains, it's going to be different cannabis products, cannabis related products. Where do you see that coming into mainstream, and how long does that take before cannabis is 50% of our economy?
I think that that's going to take some time, but I think that the timing is perfect, right? Because I think when you look at what you just said, then you're looking at the combination of cannabis in terms of, you know, THC type products, and you're talking about hemp, because now we're talking about taking over industries also, right?
Let me interrupt you. I'll let you get right back to it. I'm talking about, imagine walking down the aisle of Target, and Target now suddenly has a bong aisle. Target suddenly now has all these electronic vaporizers. They have a weed aisle. That's what I'm talking about. It's not just weed. Maybe Target says, hey, we never sell weed. Maybe Target stays away from it completely. But when does that switch happen? Well, now you could buy, you know, bongs or marijuana material, weed paraphernalia, as everybody used to call it. Your boxes, your pipes, your this, your that, the clothing, the styles, the this, all that kind of stuff that goes with the whole culture.
I don't think you'll ever see, well, never say never. I'll say in the next 25 years, I don't think you will see THC cannabis products on Walmart shelves or Target shelves or any of those types of shelves. I mean, I think you already see CBD, right? So that's one thing. But in the same way that now, could there be a dispensary inside of Target? Maybe eventually, right?
That's what CVS does.
Right. But you don't see aisles of medications, right, that are at the level that cannabis has been at in terms of, you know, federal scheduling for that long, then just turn around and go on the common shelves of. And I don't think that, like, when you look at advertising guidelines as it relates to advertising to children and the efforts that we go to keep these products away from even the eyeballs of children, where you can't even have anything about it on the outside of the building because they're afraid that, you know, a minivan full of children is going to drive by and the kid's going to go, "Mommy, what is that?" Right? So those days are a long way away, if ever. And I think that there will always be a separate structure for cannabis.
I do too. It's just sometimes you think, you never know. It could happen.
It could happen, but I just think I mean, that would have to be
It wouldn't make sense.
Yeah.
It wouldn't make sense, but that doesn't mean it's not going to happen.
Correct. No, that's true, but I think that's got to be a long way off, if at all.
Do you think that's a good business model for some of these dispensaries to, you know, they link up with, like, there's Subways in Walmart. They just rent the space and have the dispensary right there. And then you're sort of under the protection of Walmart's, you know, security in their building. And
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't put one of my stores in there.
Okay.
I can tell you that I would want to, you know, I like to do stores where I have my own dedicated parking. I like to create experiences for people. Yeah, there was no way I don't think that I would ever go in a big box.
The more personal approach to it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I want to be able to create an experience for customers from, you know, the parking all the way through the entire experience. There's not a detail that we don't spend hours discussing in focus groups and trying to figure out, you know, exactly what's going to give people the best experience and the best, you know, colors and the best education and all of these aspects that we put into that. So to then kind of give that up to some sort of big corporate structure like that, I'm good.
Okay. We can agree on that. So, I know I've had you on for about a half hour already, so I want to give you the opportunity to you know, tell a story. You know, where we've been talking about men's mental health all month, and doesn't matter that it's June 1st. You know, mental health is obviously a big issue with veterans. Mental health is obviously a big issue with everybody. I think we could attribute most of the problems in the world today are clearly due to mental health issues that were never taken care of, um, especially with all the violence everywhere. So, that being said, and you being a veteran yourself, and this Memorial Day weekend just passed, I'd like it if you would share a story. And I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but just share a mental health story. It could be a personal story. It could be a story about a buddy of yours. Uh, so it's up to you if you want to
Yeah,
share something that could somebody else listening could be experiencing the same thing.
absolutely. Yeah. So as I was going through the medical separation process, I had a good friend of mine that was also going through the medical separation process, and we met as we were both going through that process. So both of us were extremely good at what we did in the military, and so we had a lot of pride in what we did. We were we'd always score the highest on everything, and we were expert marksmen, and in the military system, you're valuable until you're not. So once you end up in one of these kind of medical hold situations, you're just you're kind of off to the side, and it's not done intentionally. That's just the way that it is. There's a lot going on and a lot of moving parts. So already those guys kind of they just feel down and they're not being utilized, and it takes, in some cases it took me 15, 16 months where you don't really have a real job. You're just attached to the hospital, and it's just a depressing process. Plus you have the anxiety of, you're getting kicked out of the military. If these guys were planning on staying in 20 years, they weren't pursuing other types of things that maybe they should. So then there's some regret of oh, I should have utilized all of these, things that I had ahead of time. So difficult transition process, going through that. So I had a friend who was going through that process with me. And he was actually being medically separated because he had gotten leukemia. And young kid, he was 25. I was mid 20s, late 20s at the time. And it was just one of those things. They had no idea, why he got it. He went through chemo for an extended period of time and was able to ultimately beat the cancer, but it just took a toll on him where, he said he felt like he had just lived 10 lifetimes essentially in one lifetime, and he was just tired all the time, and he was just miserable. And so both of us actually ended up getting medically separated about right at the same time, where we were both discharged within, I think, 2 months of each other. And one of my only real hobbies that I do just purely for fun is I've played basketball my whole life. And so me and him would go play basketball, and we would do certain things. So he ended up having some issues, and him and his wife at the time separated, and they were going through a divorce. So it was just another kind of, and now he's in his house alone, going through all of these issues, just out of the military, and then the divorce stuff on top of it, kind of like you were talking about earlier. So, he would always tell me that he was fine, when I would call him, but I could tell sometimes he wasn't. And I'm obviously all over the place, but there was a 2-month period where I would make sure 3 or 4 days a week I would go. It was maybe 10 minutes out of my way, but it was kind of on my way home, for a period of time there where we were doing a licensing project at. And so I would go 3 or 4 times a week. Some weeks I would go every day. I would go check on him. He'd be there by himself. We'd play Madden for a little while. I would bring him sample products from the dispensaries, where I was able to get him products for free because I knew he didn't have a lot of money, but he was telling me that cannabis would kind of help him, And so this went on for a long period of time, and then he kind of got out of it. I think him and his wife got back together, and then he ended up moving back to where he was from on the East Coast. But he told me before he left, he was like, I really want to thank you. He's like, there was about 5 or 6 times that you knocked on my door, and I would never I would text him sometimes, but it just got to where I would just drop by. It was weird. And I've never done this. I've never been in this situation. It was just weird. I just knew that I was supposed to do it. You know what I mean? And he told me that there was 5 or 6 times that when I had knocked on the door, he was upstairs with a loaded Glock, and that he had planned to kill himself that day on half a dozen different occasions. And then when I would knock on the door, and it was weird because sometimes when I would go in there with him, it did seem like he was pissed off, it seemed like he was mad that I was there. And I would just come in and be like, hey, let's smoke a bowl, and, we'll just hang out and play video games, and I never once said anything. I never asked him if he was okay. I never hey, you should really do this, or, I just cause I didn't know that it was that serious. I was just trying to be there for him, and when he told me that, it was just man, it really blew me away. So I think the message is, especially with I think men, it can be hard to reach out. And I think that, men are not going to ask for help generally, and women too, strong women as well. And so I think that we just have to make sure that we are, even if they don't want it, that we're following up with people that we know are struggling or going through something that even if they seem okay, they might not be okay,
So I'm glad you shared that, and you should feel good about that. I know. People feel guilty about feeling good that they were there for somebody when they needed it, but that's okay, because it's good. You fulfilled that purpose for that specific event. Correct. You helped that person. I know I've done it for other people. I know other people have done it for me. It's definitely tough. I mean, there's lots of things that guys go through, and stuff that I didn't even think of on my own when I started really talking to other guys out there. And there's so many things, and I got to be honest. I think it has to change from the military standpoint. I think the military has to have more of a proactive approach to this rather than a reactive approach. It's harder to fix. It's easier to kind of be proactive about it. Plan ahead and know, how we can help veterans when they get out, in these situations, and when they come back, and then there's something there for them rather than, here's a little bit of money and good luck.
Right.
There should be more to that. So I've spoken with a lot of people in a lot of different industries, and a lot of people feel the same way. Different political beliefs. Some are Republicans, some are Democrats, some are up Trump's ass, and some hate Trump. There's all different varieties. I don't play the politic game because
everybody loses.
I'm so sick of the politics already. It's deliberately meant to separate us. I don't want to do it anymore. But I'd like to find a way to sort of make a unified push with the military from veterans groups, that the change needs to happen within the military, because they can't keep saying, oops, yeah, you're right. Oops, yeah, you're right. Oops, yeah, you're right. But more and more men and women come out of the military, and there's a lot of problems that aren't taken care of.
Yes.
So,
yeah, I think
the cannabis industry is the right path into the military to make those changes.
I agree. We actually have we submitted a grant about 8 months ago, an unsolicited grant directly to the VA. And we're trying to form, a direct partnership with them to help us create basically VA, cannabis distribution hubs at each of our dispensaries. and to have those products set aside that the VA will cover, under their VA care. And there's a lot of, I just shared an article today on LinkedIn that popped up where there's a lot of pushing now for the VA to cover that. And so, that would be incredible if we can bridge that gap. And, obviously I hope it's my company because, I feel like my intentions in this are honest,
At this point, so, you have my vote, but
yeah, I appreciate it. And I just want it to stay pure. And I know what we're already doing and what we're trying to do. But if it wasn't and it was somebody else, I would still celebrate, whoever that was, as long as
support it.
Yeah, because it's just, we have to have that bridge between the VA and the cannabis industry. And so, I'm trying to create that bridge, and I hope that there's 1,000 other people that are trying to create that bridge, and hopefully one of us can, for the sake of everybody. That's kind of the way that I look at it.
I agree. Thank you very much. Any fun tips that you want to give out there for we have a lot of military guys who follow this page. A lot of military guys, a lot of veterans.
Yeah.
They just watch it all different times. Any tips you want to give for cannabis related issues or medical issues or moving state to state or anything specific to California you want to mention for your vet buddies?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that if you're just starting out in cannabis and you're just like going down the road of trying to create solutions for issues that you have specific to cannabis, I would just start very, very slow. I think, so one of the issues that I've seen is people like jump into it with some of these products that aren't designed that take them through. Have you ever seen that chart where they talk about the healing zone of cannabis and how if you have like a real instant spike of THC, it takes you through that healing zone. Okay. And the goal is, and these are some of the products we're trying to create, is the goal is like, how long can you keep yourself in that healing zone before those levels drop, right? And how can you maintain that? Right. And so I think focusing on, if you're using cannabis to treat something specific, taking the little bit of time to do the research on what combinations of cannabinoids and what strains and what dosing will help you treat that specifically, because the answer might not be buy a 2-gram blunt that's rolled in keef and oil that has 400 milligrams in the whole thing. That might not be your answer. Maybe to somebody it is their answer, but don't just assume that you have to take it to that level. There might be a little mint that you can put under your tongue every morning that brings your anxiety down all day, and that's all you need. But if you start out with the more extremes, it'll be harder to go the opposite way. So I think just taking the time to do the research on what's going to work for what you're trying to deal with.
Love it. Yeah. I know it's actually fitting. It's Tuesday, and I used to always do something. I used to always do my Turpin Tuesday, like trying to do the things here. Turpin Tuesday.
Yeah.
Just because the alliteration, I believe alliteration works because in any form of communication, whether I'm talking to you or I'm writing it or it's visual, if you see the alliterations, it's just catchy. You get it. So Turpin Tuesday.
I love it.
Yeah, and I used to just talk about a different terp every Tuesday. Oh, see, I sneezed on it.
Yeah, that's all right.
So, any questions you have for us, or anything you want to talk about?
No. I see. I just want to thank everybody for tuning in. I see some people mentioning me by name in the comments. I just wanted to let them know that I cannot comment back.
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys.
Yeah, you had Kevin say hi. You had Michelle say hi. You had Tammy say hi. And you had Laura say hi.
I didn't want I didn't want everyone to think I was ignoring them.
No. They know. They know. On this, the way this is set up, nobody can comment back. Yeah. So.
Awesome.
But sir, looks like your screen froze there for a sec.
Oh, did it? Am I back?
It's probably my signal. It's probably my signal. That's all right. But thank you again for joining us. I had you on for 45 minutes, and I appreciate it. I know you're a dad too, so I know I'm getting the evil eyes through the wall. I can feel them. I can feel the eyes.
I really appreciate you bringing me on and giving me the platform to talk about this. So I really love all the work that you're doing. I appreciate it.
I have a feeling that this was the start of a legitimate good friendship.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Have a good one.
Thanks everybody. All right, bye.
Take care, guys.